Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are opening up really the source code of human productivity. We're not just glancing at motivation. We're diving deep into the fundamental operating system of how we succeed. And we're using the remarkable philosophy laid out by James Clear in Atomic Habits. Our mission today really is to distill the core mechanics of building reliable systems. We're focusing on the surprising power of making the absolute smallest changes.
Those tiny, irreducible units.
Exactly. The atomic units of behavior that somehow build up to extraordinary results.
And it's such a vital conversation because, well, we're constantly told, aren't we, that big transformation needs big action. Radical change requires radical steps.
Yeah, the go big or go home mentality.
Precisely. But Clear argues, really convincingly, and based on his own experience too, that success is almost never about one massive, earth-shattering shift. It's the product of the systems you put in place, the processes you stick to every day, even, maybe especially, when they feel insignificant.
And what gives this whole idea such weight is the origin story behind it. It's genuinely harrowing. This wasn't just theory cooked up in an office.
No, not at all. This philosophy was forged in, frankly, trauma and in a painfully slow recovery process.
So where does it start?
It starts, believe it or not, on the last day of his sophomore year in high school. A baseball practice, something routine, turns catastrophic. A bat slips from a teammate's hands
Oh, no.
and strikes him right between the eyes. The impact was, well, severe doesn't cover it, a crushed nose, multiple skull fractures, seizures,
Wow.
and he ended up in a medically induced coma just to let the brain swelling go down.
That's terrifying. It just stops life in its tracks, doesn't it?
Completely. And when he finally woke up, the challenges were, well, immense and deeply frustrating for a young athlete. Temporary double vision, he lost his sense of smell.
Oh, wow.
And there was this one moment, truly terrifying, where he tried to blow his nose and the air forced through the fractures in his eye socket and actually made his left eye bulge out.
Unbelievable. Just the recovery from that must have been immense.
It was slow, agonizing. The path back was all about rebuilding the most basic systems. Months of physical therapy just to relearn simple motor skills, like walking in a straight line again.
And for someone so focused on athletics.
Exactly. The humiliation piled on. He was the only junior cut from the varsity baseball team the next year. He felt, understandably, overwhelmed, depressed, like he'd lost all control over his life.
So how do you go from that point, coma, cut from the team, to eventually, what was it, top male athlete and academic All-America at Denison University? That's a huge leap. Was there some, single moment of blinding motivation, a revelation?
No, not really. That's the interesting part. The turning point wasn't some grand event. It was a realization once he got to college that, okay, maybe he couldn't control the big outcomes right then.
Right.
But he could control the tiny inputs. He didn't have to be perfect overnight. He just had to focus on getting, say, 1% better than yesterday.
So while everyone else is doing the typical college thing.
He focused on disciplined sleep habits. While others pulled all-nighters, he prioritized rest. He started making his bed every single morning. He started lifting weights consistently, just small routines.
Things that seem almost trivial in isolation. Good sleep, a tidy room,
Yeah.
hitting the gym regularly.
Right. But the goal wasn't instantly becoming a star athlete. The initial goal was just regaining a sense of agency, rebuilding confidence. That system of small, consistent habits gave him back that feeling of control, which was critical. And then that confidence, that belief he could actually improve, that started to compound.
Eventually led to breaking school records and all that success.
Exactly. And that's how we get to the core definition. An atomic habit. It's, like you said, an extremely small amount of something. The single irreducible unit of a larger system.
They're building blocks.
They're the building blocks that, when you put them together consistently, produce remarkable, large-scale results that seem impossible if you just look at the starting point.
Okay, so the path needs to be small, incremental. But that brings us to the core problems, right? Why do people fail when they try to change?
Well, we're unpacking the two main reasons people typically stumble. First, trying to change the wrong thing, focusing on the outcomes, like losing weight instead of the identity.
Okay.
And second, trying to change habits in the wrong way, basically using the wrong system, the wrong mechanics for how habits actually work.
All right, let's start with that first big idea then, the power of the 1%.
Yeah.
How that smallest change can yield the largest result. It seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, this compounding effect idea, it really forces you to throw out your normal expectations for progress, doesn't it? We think improvement should look like a steady straight line upwards.
We do. We expect linear results, but the math, as Clear lays it out, is just staggering. If you focus on getting just 1% better, one tiny percent every single day for a year, the improvement is exponential. You're not 365% better, which is what you might intuitively think. You're actually 37 times better by the end of that year.
37 times. That's hard to grasp.
It is, because the change is almost invisible at first. You can't really see the difference after 1 week of hitting the gym or 1 day of putting a little money aside. It feels like nothing's happening.
Right. That I'm not seeing results phase.
Exactly. But that tiny daily investment, it compounds, like interest piling up in a bank account. Over time, it leads to massive differences. And the flip side is just as powerful, maybe even more sobering.
The negative compounding.
Yeah. If you get just 1% worse each day, maybe, you slip into a bad habit, make slightly poorer choices for a year, you decline almost down to zero. Small errors, minor lapses in judgment, they don't stay minor forever. They compound too.
So this completely flips where we should put our focus. Stop looking for the big, dramatic breakthrough moment.
Right.
And start obsessing about the daily inputs instead of focusing only on where you are right now.
You need to focus on your trajectory, where you are heading. You should be far more concerned, Clear argues, with your current trajectory than with your current results.
Give me an example of that. Okay, think about money. You could have a millionaire who, despite their current wealth, consistently overspends by, say, $1,000 every month. Their current results look great, but their trajectory, it's disastrous.
Headed for trouble.
Definitely. Now, contrast that with someone who is currently broke but manages to save just $5 every single day. Their current results, not impressive, but their trajectory. They're on a path toward financial freedom.
So the small daily decision reveals the true direction long before the results catch up.
Precisely. The results today are almost irrelevant compared to the direction you're consistently traveling.
And you mentioned this works in destructive ways too, emotionally. This idea of negative compounding. How does that play out? How do we build a system against that?
Oh, it's a huge challenge because negative compounding often starts subtly. It might be small stresses piling up frustration in traffic, a bit of worry about bills, maybe a negative thought pattern about yourself like, I'm not good enough.
Things we tend to brush off individually.
Exactly. They seem manageable in isolation. But when they persist day after day, year after year, the system starts to break down. Those little stresses compound into serious health issues over time.
Like chronic stress leading to physical problems.
Right. Or those negative thoughts become self-fulfilling prophecies. You start building these thought loops where you condition yourself to interpret everything through a negative lens. It becomes automatic.
And you see this in society too.
Absolutely. Think about large-scale social unrest like riots or mass movements. They rarely erupt because of just one single event. Usually they're the result of a long series of, microaggressions, small indignities, accumulated outrage. That multiplies and compounds emotionally until one final incident tips the scale, and all that pent-up energy explodes into collective action. You have to treat those negative inputs, whether personal or societal, as system failures needing urgent repair.
Okay, so the 1% improvements are potent, but often delayed. That brings up a big hurdle.
Yeah.
Why does it feel so useless when we start a new habit? We go to the gym for 3 weeks, see zero change on the scale, and just quit.
Yes. That feeling of running in place, like you're putting in effort but getting nowhere, that's the death knell for most new habits.
That's it going on there.
That's what Clear calls the plateau of latent potential. It's sometimes called the valley of disappointment.
A valley of disappointment. I like that.
It fits, doesn't it? It's a hallmark of any compounding process, good or bad. The most powerful outcomes are delayed. We look at the immediate cost, the effort of going for a run, the sacrifice of skipping dessert, and we compare it to the immediate return.
Which is often zero.
Exactly, zero visible return. And so our brain logically concludes this habit isn't worth the effort, and we stop.
That requires a huge amount of faith then, to keep going through that valley when you see absolutely nothing changing. How do you emotionally survive that?
You survive it by understanding, really internalizing, that the effort isn't being wasted. It's being stored. It's accumulating.
Like potential energy.
Precisely. There's a fantastic quote. The San Antonio Spurs, one of the most successful NBA teams ever, reportedly hung in their locker room. It's from the social reformer Jacob Riis, and it perfectly captures this idea.
Okay, what is it?
Riis said, When nothing seems to help, I go and look at a stonecutter hammering away at his rock, perhaps 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it. Yet at the 101st blow, it will split in two.
Ah,
And I know it was not that last blow that did it, but all that had gone before.
wow. It wasn't the final hit, but the accumulated stress from all the previous hits.
Yeah.
That completely reframes it, doesn't it? It's not about instant gratification. It's about persistence being essential.
Absolutely essential. And that brings us right to a core distinction Clear makes. We're all taught to set big, ambitious goals, lose 50 pounds, write a novel, run a marathon.
Right, the SMART goals framework and all that.
Yeah, but if goals alone aren't enough, if people still fail, even with clear goals, what's the missing piece? What ensures we keep hammering away at that rock, even in the valley of disappointment?
Okay, what is it?
It's the system. Goals are about the finish line, winning the game. Systems are about continuing to play the game. They're about endless refinement, continuous improvement day after day.
So the goal is the outcome you want.
And the system is the collection of daily habits, the process that gets you there. So if you're struggling to achieve a goal, the problem likely it's not your motivation or your willpower. The problem is your system.
That's a powerful reframe. It's not me, it's my process.
It is. And here's the crucial lesson, maybe one of the most important takeaways. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your system.
Oof. Yeah, say that again.
You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. You need a good system in place to ensure you keep showing up, keep playing, long after the initial excitement about the goal fades. If you can just eliminate the bad results by fixing the system, progress kind of takes care of itself.
Okay, I need a real-world example of this. Focusing entirely on the system, this aggregation of marginal gains idea.
Right. The perfect, almost legendary example is Dave Brailsford and the transformation of British cycling.
Ah, yes, I've heard bits about this.
Yeah.
They were famously...
Not great, right?
It's an understatement. For nearly 100 years, British cycling was synonymous with mediocrity. They'd won just one single Olympic gold medal since 1908. They'd never, ever won the Tour de France in its 110-year history at the time.
Wow.
It was so bad that one top European bike manufacturer actually refused to sell bikes to the team because they were afraid that associating with British cycling would damage their brand reputation.
That's brutal. So what changed? Dave Brailsford was hired as the performance director around 2003, and he brought in this, revolutionary philosophy he called the aggregation of marginal gains.
Okay, break that down. Aggregation of marginal gains.
The strategy was simple in concept, but absolutely relentless in execution. Break down everything you could possibly think of that goes into riding a bike.
Everything.
Everything. And then improve each individual component by just 1%. The core assumption was that if you improved hundreds of tiny things, the combined effect, the aggregation, would lead to massive overall improvement.
So where'd they start? The obvious stuff first.
Yeah, they began with the basics. Redesigning the bike seats to make them slightly more comfortable, testing different fabrics for racing suits in a wind tunnel, rubbing alcohol on the tires for maybe a tiny bit better grip.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then they started hunting for that 1% everywhere, moving into really unexpected areas of the whole system.
Like what? This is where it gets interesting.
Right. They tested different types of massage gels to see which one led to slightly faster muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon to teach the riders the absolute best way to wash their hands to minimize the risk of catching colds or infections.
Hand washing. Seriously.
Seriously. They determined the optimal type of pillow and mattress for each individual rider to ensure the best possible night's sleep before a race. They even, and this is the famous one, they painted the inside of the team's support truck white.
Painted the truck white. Why on earth would they do that? How does that help you cycle faster?
It wasn't about making the truck faster. It was so they could spot tiny specks of dust or debris more easily. Dust that might otherwise get into the finely tuned bike mechanics and degrade performance by, a tiny fraction.
Wow, that's obsessive.
It's obsessive about the process. The result wasn't one single magic bullet improvement. It was hundreds of these tiny 1% gains stacking up, compounding on each other.
But how did they even track all that? Wasn't there a risk of just optimizing something completely irrelevant, like, I don't know, the color of the water bottles, and wasting time and energy?
That's a great question. And that's where the system itself and the culture Brailsford built comes in. It wasn't just about finding 1% improvements. It was about creating a culture of constant auditing, measurement, and feedback.
Ah, okay.
The real lesson wasn't necessarily that the white paint itself was revolutionary. It was that the process of thinking about the white paint, of questioning every single input, trained the entire organization, writers, coaches, mechanics, to be absolutely meticulous about every detail. They identified everything they could measure, however small, and just relentlessly tried to optimize it.
Okay, so the obsession with detail created the system and the results.
The results were, well, undeniable. Astonishing, really. Starting around the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the British cycling team began to dominate. They won 60% of the available gold medals.
60%.
Then they repeated that dominance in London in 2012. And in that period, they won the Tour de France multiple times, starting with Bradley Wiggins in 2012, the first British cyclist ever to win it. Then Chris Froome won it multiple times after him.
All from focusing on tiny improvements everywhere.
It was the system. The aggregation of marginal gains delivered outcomes that had seemed impossible for a century. It proved that focusing on the process, the system, was the key.
Okay, so we've got the power of 1% improvements and the absolute necessity of focusing on systems over just goals. That makes sense. But where should we direct that daily 1% effort? If goals aren't the main target, what is?
That's the next crucial layer, and it's a bit surprising. The direction shouldn't primarily be focused on what you want to achieve, but on who you wish to become. It's about shifting your identity.
Shifting identity. Okay, that sounds bigger than just tweaking a habit.
It is, but it's also more fundamental. Clear talks about 3 layers of behavior change, kind of like an onion. And most people, when they try to change, get stuck on the outermost layer.
Okay, what are the layers?
So the outermost layer is outcomes. That's what you get. Losing the weight, publishing the book, winning the championship. It's the result.
Right, the goal.
Exactly. The middle layer is processes. That's what you do, implementing a new workout routine, developing a daily writing schedule, practicing meditation for 10 minutes. It's the system, the habits.
Okay.
But the deepest, most core layer is identity. This is about what you believe, your fundamental worldview, your self-image, your judgments about yourself and others, your beliefs.
And you're saying most people focus on the outside, the outcomes.
Yeah, most people attempt change from the outside in. They start with the outcome. I want to lose 50 pounds. Then maybe they figure out a process. I'll follow this diet plan.
Yeah.
But they often fail to change the underlying identity. They still see themselves as someone who isn't naturally healthy or someone who struggles with food. So the change feels forced, temporary.
So the key is to flip that. Start from the inside out.
Exactly. Focus on the identity first. Decide who you want to become. Then figure out the processes, habits that reinforce that identity. The outcomes then tend to take care of themselves as a byproduct.
Okay, that feels like a subtle shift, but I can see how it might be profound. Can you give an example?
Think about 2 people trying to quit smoking. You offer them a cigarette. The first person, focused on outcome, might say, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit."
Okay, so they still identify as a smoker who's currently resisting.
Right. The identity is still smoker. Now, the second person, focused on identity, says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker."
Ah, big difference.
Huge difference. The second person has fundamentally changed their self-image. Smoking is now inconsistent, incongruous with who they believe they are. The behavior change becomes much more sustainable because it aligns with their internal identity.
So the moment your self-image changes, the behavior needed to maintain that image feels, well, almost natural, not like a constant battle of willpower.
Yeah, precisely. If you truly believe I am a runner, you don't necessarily need tons of willpower to go for a run on a Tuesday morning. That's just what runners do, right? It aligns with your identity.
Okay, so how do we actually change our identity? It sounds hard.
It happens incrementally, through proof. This is where the idea of habits as votes comes in. Every single action you take is essentially a vote cast for the type of person you wish to become.
A vote, how did that work?
If you go to the gym, even for just 15 minutes when you didn't feel like it, you've just cast a vote for the identity of, I am someone who is physically active.
Okay.
If you choose to read 1 page of a book instead of scrolling your phone before bed, you've cast a vote for, I am a reader.
And critically, one vote doesn't change the election, right?
No.
Especially if you've spent years casting votes for the opposite identity.
Exactly. No single instance transforms your beliefs overnight. But as the votes accumulate, day after day, the evidence for your new identity starts to build. It becomes harder and harder to deny. Your brain starts to see the proof.
So you're literally building evidence for a new belief about yourself.
You are. Clear tells a great story about a friend who lost over 100 pounds. Her success wasn't really down to some magic diet plan. It was down to consistently asking herself one simple question before making choices throughout the day.
What was the question?
What would a healthy person do?
Ah, so simple.
Deceptively simple, but powerful. Would a healthy person take the stairs or the elevator? Would a healthy person order the burrito or the salad? Would a healthy person walk or grab a cab for a short distance?
So each time she answered and acted accordingly, she was casting another vote.
For the identity of I am a healthy person, she wasn't just focusing on losing weight, the outcome. She was actively becoming a healthy person, the identity. The weight loss followed as a natural consequence of that identity shift.
That makes perfect sense. And this whole process gets a massive boost from intrinsic motivation, right?
Yeah.
When you start to feel good about the identity itself.
Absolutely, intrinsic motivation is key. There's another anecdote about a man named Clark who bit his nails for years. He tried various things to stop, managed it for short periods, but it never really stuck
Okay.
until he got his first ever professional manicure. Suddenly, his nails looked nice. He started to take pride in how they looked.
So it wasn't about avoiding the negative, ugly nails anymore.
So exactly. That pride became the intrinsic motivation. He started seeing himself as someone who takes care of his hands, someone with nice nails. The desire to maintain that positive self-image, that pride, became much more powerful than just trying not to do something bad. The behavior became effortless because it served that internal satisfaction.
So it's a feedback loop then. Your habits shape your identity by casting those votes,
Mm-hmm.
and then your emerging identity starts to shape your habits, making them feel more natural and intrinsically rewarding.
It's a continuous self-reinforcing loop, which is why the primary focus, the starting point for lasting change, should always be on the who. Who do you want to become? Once you're clear on the who, maybe it's, I am the kind of writer who finishes projects, or I am the kind of person who stays calm under pressure. Then the how, the specific habits and systems, becomes much clearer, because the process must align with that core belief.
Okay, this is great. We need small steps, 1%. We need systems, and crucially, we need to focus that effort on building the identity we want. But now we need the nuts and bolts, the actual system for implementing this. How do we reliably build a good habit or break a bad one?
Right. We need the practical levers to pull. And this is where Clear introduces the 4 laws of behavior change, which are grounded in the basic neuroscience of how habits actually form. It goes back surprisingly far, actually, to experiments by Edward Thorndike in 1898.
1898, with what?
With cats. Thorndike used puzzle boxes. He'd put a cat in a box with food just outside. The cat would be desperate to get out.
Okay.
Initially, the cat would just thrash around, randomly clawing, biting, meowing. Eventually, purely by accident, it would perform the action needed to escape, like pressing a lever or pulling a string.
And then it gets the reward freedom in food.
Exactly. And Thorndike observed that with each repetition, the cat became faster at escaping. The random actions decreased, and the effective action became more automatic. The satisfying consequence stamped in the connection between the situation and the action.
So the brain starts to lock onto the cues that predict success and automates the response.
Precisely. Our conscious mind is actually a bottleneck for processing information. So, to free up mental resources, when we do something repeatedly and get a reward, the brain creates a mental shortcut, a neurological feedback loop. It basically says, if this situation cue, then do that response to get the reward, and that becomes a habit.
Okay, so what are the steps in that loop?
It boils down to 4 simple steps that drive essentially all human behavior, good or bad. Habits are just automated solutions that follow this pattern.
All right, lay them out for us.
First, there's the cue. This is the trigger, the little bit of information that predicts a reward is coming. It could be a time of day, a location, an emotion, seeing a particular person, hearing a notification sound.
The thing that kicks it off.
Exactly. Second, the cue triggers a craving. This isn't about the habit itself, but the change in state it delivers. You don't crave smoking, you crave the feeling of relief it provides. You don't crave turning on the TV, you crave feeling entertained or distracted. The craving is the motivational force.
Okay, cue leads to craving. What's next?
Third is the response. This is the actual habit you perform the action or even just a thought. Whether you act on the craving depends on motivation, but also critically on how easy the action is. This links to what Clear calls the law of least effort.
We'll get back to that, I'm sure. And the fourth step.
Finally, the reward. The response delivers a reward which satisfies the craving, but more importantly, the reward serves 2 purposes. It satisfies you now, and it teaches your brain for the future. It tells your brain, hey, that sequence cue, craving, response worked. Remember it and do it again next time. It closes the feedback loop.
Cue, craving, response, reward. And if any step is weak or missing,
The behavior won't become an automatic habit. The loop needs to be complete and reliable.
let's dig into the psychology a bit more here, especially the craving part.
Right.
What about dopamine? We hear a lot about dopamine loops with things like social media or junk food.
Yeah, dopamine plays a huge role. Habits are essentially dopamine-driven feedback loops.
Yep.
And you're right, highly habit-forming behaviors, drugs, gambling, social media notifications, sugary foods are associated with big dopamine spikes.
So dopamine equals pleasure, right? That's the reward.
Well, that's a common understanding, but the science is actually more nuanced. Neurologically, there's a difference between wanting something and liking something. Dopamine is primarily associated with the wanting, the anticipation, the craving.
Oh, interesting. So the dopamine spike happens before you get the reward.
Largely, yes. It's the anticipation of the reward that motivates you to act that generates the craving. Think about it. The pleasure you get from eating a cookie might be over quickly, but the desire for the cookie, the anticipation, can drive your behavior long before you take a bite. It's the wanting that gets you off the couch, not necessarily the liking itself.
Okay, so the anticipation, the craving fueled by dopamine, is the real engine of the habit loop.
Exactly. Our brains evolved to prioritize seeking rewards, and dopamine fuels that seeking behavior. So if we want to build good habits, we need to engineer things so that the anticipation of the reward is strong. We need to make the craving happen for the good stuff.
Which brings us back to the practical framework, the 4 laws. How do they connect to this loop?
Perfectly. The 4 laws are essentially practical rules for hacking each stage of that habit loop to make behaviors more or less likely.
Okay, let's hear them. How do you create a good habit?
To create a good habit, you apply these 4 laws. The first law is make it obvious, related to the cue. The second law is make it attractive, related to the craving. The third law is make it easy, related to the response. And the fourth law is make it satisfying, related to the reward.
Obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. Okay, that's memorable. And to break a bad habit.
You just invert those laws. You apply friction at every stage. The first law becomes make it invisible, hide the cue. The second law becomes make it unattractive, reduce the craving. The third law becomes make it difficult, increase friction for the response. And the fourth law becomes make it unsatisfying, ensure the reward is painful or absent.
Got it. So this framework gives us 4 specific levers we can pull for any habit we want to change.
Exactly. It moves from abstract understanding to a concrete toolkit for behavior change.
All right, let's dive into the first law. Make it obvious for good habits or make it invisible for bad ones. This is all about the cue, right? Managing the trigger.
Precisely. And the very first step before you can make anything obvious or invisible is simply awareness. You can't change a habit if you don't even realize you're doing it.
Like mindlessly checking your phone every 5 minutes or
Yeah.
covering your mouth when you laugh, maybe. Things we do automatically.
Exactly. Many of our daily actions run on autopilot. As Carl Jung apparently said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
So how do we make the unconscious conscious?
The essential starting tool Clear recommends is the habit scorecard. It's simple but powerful. You literally just take a piece of paper or a notebook and write down your daily habits as you go through your day.
Like wake up, check phone, make coffee, commute.
Yeah, everything you can notice. Wake up, turn off alarm, check phone, use the bathroom, brush teeth, weigh yourself, get dressed, be as detailed as possible. Then, next to each habit, you mark it as positive, plus, negative, neutral, based on whether it helps you become the type of person you want to be.
Ah, so it forces you to actually see where your time and energy are going and evaluate if those actions align with your desired identity.
Exactly. It brings awareness. It makes the invisible visible. That's the crucial first step.
Okay, so once we're aware of our habits and the cues that trigger them, how do we make the good cues more obvious? Often the problem isn't lack of motivation, it's just
Yeah.
vagueness, right? I want to eat healthier. That's not a clear cue.
Right. Vague intentions lead to vague results or no results. The solution here is a strategy called implementation intentions. You overcome vagueness by pre-deciding exactly when and where you will perform the habit.
So giving your intention a time and a place in the world.
Precisely. The format is simple. I will behavior at time and location. For example, instead of, I'll try to meditate more, you state, I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen.
And this actually works.
Research shows it's incredibly effective. Studies on things like getting flu shots or increasing voter turnout found that asking people to write down the specific time and location dramatically increased follow-through rates, sometimes by double or triple. It primes your brain, removes ambiguity, and makes the cue much clearer when the time and place arrive.
Okay, that's implementation intentions. What else can we do to make cues obvious?
We can leverage cues we already have by using habit stacking. This involves linking your desired new habit to a habit that's already firmly established in your routine.
Piggybacking on an existing habit.
Exactly. The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit. Your current habit acts as the cue for the new one.
Examples.
After I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will meditate for 60 seconds. After I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes. When I see a set of stairs, I will take them instead of the elevator. You're anchoring the new behavior to something that already happens reliably.
So implementation intentions give you the when and where, and habit stacking links it to an existing when. Clever.
They work really well together. But perhaps the most powerful strategy for making cues obvious is simply environment design. Redesigning your physical space to nudge you towards better choices.
Because we're so influenced by what's around us.
Hugely influenced, especially by what we see. Remember, something like 10 million of our 11 million sensory receptors are dedicated to vision. Small changes in what you see can lead to big changes in what you do, often without you even realizing it.
Okay, give me the classic example here.
The cafeteria study by Dr. Ann Thorndike at Massachusetts General Hospital. They wanted people to drink more water and less soda, but without using posters or lectures, just changing the environment.
So what do?
Initially, the refrigerators next to the cash registers only contained soda. The researchers simply added bottled water as an option in those main fridges. They also placed baskets of bottled water near the food stations throughout the cafeteria. That's it.
And the results?
Soda sales dropped by 11.4%. Bottled water sales jumped by 25.8%. Nobody's motivation changed. Nobody was told what to do. They just made the healthier choice the more obvious, visually prominent, and easily accessible choice at the moment of decision.
That's the power of the visual cue right there, like the fly in the urinal at Schiphol Airport.
Exactly. A brilliant, slightly absurd example. Etching a tiny image of a fly near the drain in the men's urinals gave people an unconscious target to aim for.
And it worked.
It significantly reduced spillage, as they politely called it, which in turn cut bathroom cleaning costs by about 8% a year. A tiny visual cue redirected behavior automatically. Our eyes guide us more than we think.
We also need to think about the context associated with cues, right? The idea of one space, one use.
Yes, this is really important. Habits thrive in predictable environments. If you try to mix contexts like using your couch for watching TV, eating dinner, and doing focused work, your brain gets confused about which habit loop to run.
And the easiest one, or the most ingrained one, usually wins. Probably relaxing on the couch beats working on the couch.
Almost always. That's why it's so hard to work from bed or relax in your office. The solution is to try and dedicate different spaces to different activities. A desk only for work, a specific chair just for reading, the bedroom only for sleep. When the context is consistent, the associated habit is triggered much more reliably.
Okay, so that's making good cues obvious. Now, the inversion. Make it invisible to break bad habits.
Right. If the cue triggers the habit, the simplest way to break a bad habit is to avoid the cue altogether. Reduce your exposure.
This seems obvious, but we often try to rely on willpower instead, don't we? Resisting temptation.
We do. But self-control, Clear argues, is a short-term strategy. It's finite, it gets depleted. Disciplined people aren't necessarily heroic figures with superhuman willpower. They're often just better at structuring their lives to avoid tempting situations in the first place. Environment optimization is the long-term solution.
So practical examples.
If you eat too many cookies, don't keep them on the counter where you see them constantly. Put them away, or better yet, don't buy them. If you waste time on your phone, leave it in another room when you need to focus, or put it in a drawer during dinner. If you watch too much TV in bed, move the TV out of the bedroom entirely.
Remove the trigger from your environment.
Exactly. The story of veterans returning from Vietnam who were addicted to heroin is a powerful, though extreme, example. A surprisingly high percentage simply stopped using when they returned home. Why? Because the cues associated with drug use, the stress of war, the social context, the easy availability were all gone. The environment changed, the cues disappeared, and the habit often faded, even though the neurological pathway might still exist. Out of sight, out of mind, quite literally.
All right, moving on to the second law. Make it attractive for good habits. Make
Right.
it unattractive for bad ones. This targets the craving stage of the loop, right? Making ourselves want to do the good stuff.
Exactly. Remember, it's the anticipation of a reward, the dopamine-fueled craving that really drives us to act. So we need strategies to make the anticipation of our good habits more appealing.
How do we do that, especially for habits that seem inherently unattractive, like chores or difficult tasks?
The main strategy here is called temptation bundling. It's a clever psychological hack where you pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do.
Okay, link something fun with something necessary.
Precisely. You make the want activity contingent on first doing the need activity. The anticipation of the fun thing makes the necessary thing more attractive.
The classic example is the engineering student, Ronan Byrne, right?
Yes. He loved watching Netflix, but he knew he needed to exercise more. So, being an engineer, he hacked a stationary bike, he connected it to his laptop, and wrote some code so that Netflix would only play if he was cycling at or above a certain minimum speed.
Oh, brilliant. So no cycling, no streaming.
Exactly. He bundled the temptation, watching Netflix, with the necessary habit, exercising. He essentially made the workout the price of admission for the entertainment he craved.
Businesses do this all the time too, don't they? Associating their product with something desirable.
Constantly. Think about TV networks bundling their shows with social experiences, like ABC promoting their Thursday night lineup as TGIT, thank God it's Thursday, and associating it with relaxing at home, maybe drinking wine, eating popcorn, tweeting along. They're bundling the act of watching their shows, the need, from their perspective, with feelings of comfort, community, and immediate gratification, the want. It makes tuning in feel more attractive.
Okay, temptation bundling is one way. What else makes habits attractive? You mentioned earlier we're influenced by others.
Hugely. We are fundamentally social creatures. One of our deepest human desires is to belong, to fit in with the tribe. So we naturally imitate the habits of the cultures we belong to. Clear identifies 3 specific groups whose habits we tend to copy: the close, the many, and the powerful.
The close, the many, the powerful. Okay, break those down.
The close are our friends, family, partners, the people we spend the most time with. Their habits and beliefs rub off on us, often unconsciously. If your partner starts eating healthier, you're more likely to as well. If your close friends all smoke, it's harder not to. Proximity is powerful.
Makes sense. What about the many?
The many refers to our broader tribe, our peer group, society at large. We have an incredibly strong urge to conform to group norms. Think of the Solomon Asch conformity experiments.
Where people denied what they clearly saw just to agree with the group.
Exactly. People were shown lines of obviously different lengths, but would agree with the incorrect majority view just to avoid standing out. We'd often rather be wrong with the crowd than risk social exclusion by being right alone. So we adopt the behaviors that are seen as normal within our group.
And the power.
The powerful are those individuals who have status, prestige, respect people we admire or look up to. We tend to imitate their behaviors because we subconsciously believe those behaviors are linked to their success or status. We copy the strategies of successful athletes, entrepreneurs, or artists because we desire similar outcomes or recognition.
So the practical takeaway from all this social influence is?
It's profound. Join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Find your tribe. If you want to get fit, join a gym, a running club, or even an online community like Nerd Fitness, where being active and healthy is the shared norm, and maybe you already connect on other interests, like being a nerd.
So your desire to belong works for you, making the difficult habit feel attractive because it helps you fit in.
Exactly. It leverages our innate wiring for social connection.
Okay, now the inversion. Make it unattractive. How do we diminish the craving for our bad habits?
This involves reframing the habit. It's about changing your perception, highlighting the downsides, and breaking the positive association you might have built up.
How do we do that?
First, understand the underlying motive. Remember, habits are often modern solutions to ancient desires. Smoking might be about relieving stress. Scrolling social media might be about seeking connection or novelty. Overeating might be about comfort.
Right.
To make it unattractive, you need to focus on the true consequence, often the delayed negative one, rather than the immediate superficial reward. If you smoke, constantly remind yourself it doesn't actually relieve stress in the long run. It damages your nerves, increases anxiety later, and reduces your future freedom and health. Focus on the unattractive truth behind the immediate gratification.
So actively highlighting the negatives.
Yes, and a simple but powerful way to do this is through reframing your language. Stop using language that implies sacrifice and start using language that implies benefit for the good habits and vice versa for the bad ones.
Like the have to versus get to shift.
Exactly. Instead of saying, I have to wake up early to go work out, reframe it as, I get to wake up early to build strength and energy. It shifts the feeling from obligation to opportunity. For saving money, don't frame it as, I can't go out tonight. Frame it as, I'm saving money tonight to increase my future freedom. This simple linguistic shift changes the emotional association.
That seems doable. Anything else for making bad habits unattractive?
You can create a motivation ritual in reverse, almost, or rather associate the start of a good habit with a positive feeling. Remember the boxer Ed Lattimore? He conditioned himself so that just the act of putting on his headphones became an immediate trigger for intense focus, even before music played.
Right, he built a positive association with the cue.
You can do the same. Maybe you always listen to your favorite upbeat music only when you go for a run. Soon, just thinking about the run starts to trigger the positive feeling associated with the music, making the run itself seem more attractive. You're conditioning yourself to anticipate a positive state.
Okay, on to the third law. Make it easy for good habits. Make it difficult for bad ones. This targets the response phase, the actual doing of the habit. And it's governed by what you call the law of least effort.
That's right. Human beings are fundamentally wired to conserve energy. It's an evolutionary advantage. We naturally gravitate towards the option that requires the least amount of work or friction. We're basically efficiency machines, or maybe just lazy geniuses.
Huh. Lazy geniuses are like that?
Think about it. Every decision, every ounce of willpower you exert uses up mental energy. Every habit, even a good one, presents some level of friction or obstacle between you and the ultimate desired outcome. If you want to be healthy, the act of preparing a healthy meal or driving to the gym is the friction.
So the easier we make the good habits, the more likely we are to actually do them, especially when motivation is low.
Exactly. Reduce the friction. This principle is so fundamental, it even explains large-scale historical patterns. Jared Diamond, in his book Guns, Germs, and Steel, pointed out how agriculture spread much more quickly across Eurasia than across the Americas or Africa.
Why?
Geography.
Primarily, Eurasia stretches mainly east-west, meaning similar latitudes, climates, and day lengths. Crops and farming techniques developed in one area could spread relatively easily along that axis, the path of least resistance. The Americas and Africa stretched north-south, involving drastic climate changes, making the spread of agriculture much more difficult, more friction. The path of least effort wins on a global scale, too.
Wow. Okay, so how do we apply this reduce friction idea to our daily habits?
The main strategy is priming the environment. This means preparing your surroundings in advance to make future actions easier, almost effortless. It's like being proactively lazy.
Proactively lazy. Examples.
Remember Oswald Knuckles, the IT developer? He talked about resetting the room. After finishing work, he'd tidy his desk immediately, putting everything back in place. Before bed, he'd lay out his workout clothes for the next morning. He'd chop vegetables for dinner the night before.
So he wasn't just cleaning up, he was reducing the friction for the next action.
Exactly. Setting out your gym bag by the door, putting your book on your pillow, placing the TV remote back on its stand immediately. These tiny acts of preparation remove small points of friction that could derail you later when you're tired or unmotivated.
That leads into another concept, mastering the decisive moment, focusing on the small choices that act like entry points.
Yes, these are the little hinge points, the 2-minute choices that often determine how the next hour or even the whole evening unfolds. They're like the on-ramp to the highway. Getting on the highway is easy once you're on the ramp.
So what's a decisive moment?
That tiny decision around 5:15 p.m., do I change into my workout clothes right now or do I slump onto the couch first? That single, maybe 2-minute action is often the decisive moment. Changing determines you go to the gym, slumping determines you stay home. It's the gatekeeper habit that controls the downstream actions.
Okay, so how do we master that gatekeeper habit, that entry ramp?
This is where the famous 2-minute rule comes in. It's incredibly powerful for starting new habits. The rule is, when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do.
Less than 2 minutes. But most habits take longer than that.
Right, but you downscale it. The goal here isn't necessarily the full outcome initially. It's about mastering the art of showing up. It's about casting that vote for your identity.
So read a book for 30 minutes becomes...
Read one page, do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes and step outside.
Ah, you're just doing the very first step, the decisive moment action.
Exactly. Think of the choreographer Twyla Tharp. She had a ritual. Every morning, she'd wake up, get dressed, walk outside, and hail a cab to take her to the gym. She said the ritual wasn't the workout itself. The ritual, the habit, was hailing the cab. Once she'd done that 2-minute action, the rest followed automatically. She'd reinforced the identity of someone who shows up.
That lowers the barrier to entry so much. Anyone can read one page or take out a yoga mat.
Anyone. It makes it easy to start, builds consistency, reinforces the identity, and then you can gradually scale it up once the habit of showing up is established.
Okay, makes sense. Now, the inversion. Make it difficult. How do we increase friction for bad habits?
The most effective tool here is the commitment device. This is a choice you make in the present that locks in better behavior in the future, usually by adding significant friction or cost to the bad habit.
You're basically making a deal with your future self, knowing your future self might be weak.
Precisely. Victor Hugo, the famous author, is a classic example. Facing a deadline for The Hunchback of Notre Dame, he knew he'd be tempted to procrastinate or go outside. So he had his assistant lock away all of his clothes, leaving him only with a large shawl.
He literally couldn't go outside without looking ridiculous.
Exactly. He made procrastination physically difficult. He dramatically increased the friction for the undesirable behavior, leaving the house, to force himself into the desired behavior, writing.
What's a modern example?
Nir Eyal, an author who writes about distraction, uses a simple outlet timer connected to his internet router. It automatically cuts off the Wi-Fi every night at 10 p.m. He could go and reset it, but that extra friction is usually enough to stop mindless late-night browsing.
You're automating the friction so your weaker future self doesn't have to rely on willpower.
Yes, and this leads to the ultimate way to make bad habits difficult or good habits easy: automation. Finding ways to make the right choice happen automatically.
Like setting up automatic savings transfers.
That's a perfect example. Or think about John Henry Patterson, the store owner back in the late 1800s, whose employees kept stealing from the till. His solution wasn't better training or motivation, it was buying one of the first mechanical cash registers.
How did that help?
The machine automatically recorded sales and locked the cash drawer after each transaction. It made stealing much, much harder, practically impossible without leaving evidence. Patterson didn't automate honesty. He automated ethical behavior by making the bad habit incredibly difficult.
So we should look for one-time actions that automate good habits or block bad ones.
Absolutely. Things like enrolling in automatic savings plans, buying a high-quality mattress to improve sleep automatically, unsubscribing from tempting email newsletters, deleting social media apps from your phone. These often require a bit of effort up front, but they pay dividends over and over by making the right choices easier or the wrong choices harder long into the future.
Okay, we've reached the final law, the fourth law. Make it satisfying for good habits. Make it unsatisfying for bad ones. This targets the reward stage, determining whether the habit loop gets reinforced and repeated.
Exactly. And this leads us to what Clear calls the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided.
Immediately. That's the key word, isn't it? Because that clashes with how modern life often works.
It clashes profoundly. This is the time and consistency problem, sometimes called hyperbolic discounting. Our brains evolved in what anthropologists call an immediate return environment. Our ancestors were focused on immediate threats and opportunities. Finding the next meal, avoiding a predator, seeking shelter now. The feedback was instant.
Right. You eat the berry, you feel good now. You touch fire, you feel pain now.
Exactly. But modern society is largely a delayed return environment. The consequences of our actions are often weeks, months, or even years down the road.
And this creates a mismatch.
A huge mismatch. Think about bad habits. Smoking, eating junk food, scrolling social media. The reward is often immediate, a hit of nicotine, a sugar rush, a flash of novelty, but the cost: delayed cancer, weight gain, wasted time.
While good habits are often the reverse.
Precisely. Going to the gym, saving money, studying for an exam. The cost is immediate effort, sacrifice, boredom. But the reward: delayed better health, financial security, good grades.
So our brain, wired for immediate gratification, consistently favors the bad habits because their reward comes now, even if it's ultimately harmful. The present you basically screws over the future you.
That's a good way to put it. Present you nearly always wins that battle. So to make good habits stick, especially through that plateau of latent potential, we need to hack the system. We need to find a way to inject immediate reinforcement until the real long-term rewards finally arrive. You need to feel successful right away, even in a small way.
How do we manufacture immediate satisfaction for something like, say, exercising, where the real results take weeks?
We need to find a way to add a small, immediate reward that signals success. The hand-washing campaign in Karachi, Pakistan is a fantastic illustration. Researchers knew people understood the importance of hand-washing for health, but consistency was very low.
So knowledge wasn't enough.
No. So working with Procter & Gamble, they introduced Safeguard soap. Crucially, Safeguard was formulated to lather well and smell really nice.
Sensory feedback.
Exactly. Suddenly, the act of hand-washing wasn't just a chore for some distant health benefit. It provided immediate sensory pleasure, the nice smell, the feeling of abundant lather, the sense of being clean right now. That immediate satisfaction acted as the reward signal that taught people's brains, hey, this feels good, do it again. Hand-washing rates soared, leading to significant long-term health improvements, like reduced diarrhea and pneumonia.
They hacked the reward loop by adding immediate gratification.
They did. So, for your own habits, find ways to feel immediately successful. Maybe track your habit on a calendar and enjoy the satisfaction of marking off an X. Maybe create a small ritual after completing the habit, like enjoying a specific tea only after meditating. Give your brain an immediate win signal.
What about avoidance habits? Things where the goal is not doing something, like cutting spending or avoiding junk food. There's no action to reward.
That's a great point. For avoidance habits, the key is to make avoidance visible. You need to create an immediate reward for doing nothing. Let's say you want to stop eating out so much to save money. Open a separate savings account and name it something exciting, like Trip to Europe Fund. Every time you successfully resist the urge to eat out or order takeout, immediately transfer the money you would have spent into that specific account.
So you see the reward accumulating right away.
Exactly. You're making the benefit of not acting immediately visible and satisfying. Watching that trip to Europe balance grow feels good now, reinforcing the behavior of restraint, even though the ultimate reward, the trip, is far off.
Okay, that makes sense. Now for the final inversion. Make it unsatisfying. How do we add an immediate cost to bad habits?
If immediate reward makes a behavior repeated, immediate punishment or pain makes it avoided. We need to find ways to make the consequences of our bad habits felt right now, not just in the distant future.
How can we realistically do that?
Since we care so deeply about what others think of us, leveraging social consequences is often the most powerful way. The main tool here is the habit contract.
A formal agreement.
Yes. A written agreement, ideally signed by you and one or more accountability partners, that clearly states the behavior you're trying to stop or start and outlines a specific, immediate, and preferably painful punishment if you fail.
Painful how?
It needs to be something you genuinely want to avoid. Entrepreneur Brian Harris used this effectively. He wanted to lose weight and get fit. He created a detailed contract with his wife and his personal trainer.
What were the terms?
The contract specified his daily targets for things like calorie intake and workouts, and the penalties for failure were specific and meaningful to him. If he failed to log his food intake accurately for a day, he had to pay his trainer $100. If he missed a week of logging, it went up to $500.
Ouch. Money talks.
Yeah. It does, but there was a social cost too, maybe even more powerful for him. If he failed to weigh himself, he had to dress up in nice clothes for work the entire next week, something he disliked. And the ultimate penalty. If he failed to do his required cardio sprints, he had to wear the hat of the University of Alabama, his rival college football team, every day for the rest of the quarter and tell anyone who asked why he was wearing it.
Oh, that's brutal. Public humiliation tied to something he cared about.
Exactly. What's crucial is the psychological leverage. The financial cost stings, sure, but the social cost, the potential embarrassment, the desire not to let down his wife and trainer, the pain of supporting a rival that often provides even stronger immediate motivation to avoid the bad behavior.
So the contract makes the consequence immediate and unavoidable, and the accountability partner ensures you can't just ignore it.
Precisely. Knowing someone else is watching, someone whose opinion you value, provides a powerful, immediate social cost to inaction or failure. It leverages our deep-seated desire to maintain our reputation and be viewed positively by the group. You're essentially automating social punishment for your undesirable habits. #tag outro.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a huge amount of ground there. We've broken down this entire system for change. It seems it really boils down to understanding that Remarkable results come from those tiny atomic habits
Those 1% improvement.
that compound relentlessly over time. And the key is starting not with the outcome, but with identity deciding who you want to become.
Right. Becoming the type of person who naturally performs those desired habits.
And then using the 4 laws, make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying as the practical tools, the levers to engineer those habits and create this continuous feedback loop that reinforces that new identity.
Exactly. It's a complete framework. But there's one more piece, especially as you move beyond just establishing habits and towards real mastery in an area.
Okay, what's that?
Eventually, just doing the habit automatically might only keep you good enough. To keep improving, to reach peak performance, you need to operate according to the Goldilocks rule.
The Goldilocks rule, like the porridge.
Sort of. The idea is that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, just right.
So tasks of just manageable difficulty. If it's too easy, you get bored. If it's too hard, you get frustrated and give up.
Precisely. You need that sweet spot of challenge to stay engaged and keep pushing your boundaries, applying that 1% improvement in a focused way.
So true mastery isn't just about having habits on autopilot.
No, it requires a combination of those automatic habits and periods of deliberate practice. You need a system for reflection and review to ensure you're not just going through the motions, but are actively refining and improving, focusing that 1% game on the areas that matter most.
Like Pat Riley, the basketball coach.
Yeah, his career best effort program with the Lakers is a great example. He had players track key stats, but also rate their effort, and challenged each one to improve their total contribution by just 1% over the season, spiritually, mentally, physically. That constant reflection and drive for marginal improvement prevents complacency. You can't just rely on habits. You need periodic, focused effort and review.
Okay, so as we wrap up, what's the final provocative thought you want to leave our listeners with, drawing from all this?
I think it comes back to the core drivers. Desire initiates action, and pleasure sustains it. Ultimately, you need a powerful craving to fuel significant change. Your logical reasons for wanting to change often aren't enough on their own.
Emotion drives behavior at the end of the day.
It really does. And maybe the most provocative thought is this. If you keep saying something is a priority for you, but you never consistently manage to take action on it, maybe your actions are revealing the truth. They reveal how badly you actually want it compared to the other things you're consistently doing. Your behavior doesn't lie.
Oof. That's a challenging mirror to hold up.
It is. But the beauty of building effective systems using these laws is that they help bridge that gap. They make it easier to act in alignment with your stated desires. You learn to find satisfaction not just in the distant outcome, but in the immediate process, the simple act of showing up, casting that vote for your identity day after day.
Master your habits and you'll master your life.